Presentation up.
Hello, good morning. I appreciate the invitation from TNC to come speak today. And I also want to recognize my co-worker, Esther Adams, Manager of Strategic Initiatives, who made me come today. So thank both of y'all, because this is a great chance to get together. And don't know how many of y'all know about the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. It's a nonprofit centered in Charleston. I see Miss River James here, Professor, Executive Director. You've been involved in the center since it started, and it's just great to see you here. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do, and I guess never quite sure exactly what equity means, but I think this is one evidence of how equity has trickled down and is now boots on the ground in a way of what the center does. And so I want to move through this little slideshow and tell you a little bit about what we do, specifically the forestry part, because it was started as a legal services group in 2005. The forestry component was added later in 2013, mostly because it was shown that as people were clearing their titles, I mean, obviously the whole point is to have people use their land as an asset. Their land should be an asset rather than a liability. You know, make the land work for you rather than you working for the land. That's all part of what we try to do. Let's see how this works here. What's the...
Sorry,
Okay, and this is just a welcome. This is us. This is the center. This is our group of about 35 people. It comes and goes, and it's grown rapidly in the last few years. So this is us, and just saying hello. Next slide, please. If that's shading now. All right. Just very quickly, our mission, and this young lady is from the island. She's with the Lands and Woodlands group down there. Anyway, the center's mission is to protect heirs property and then promote the sustainable use of land to provide increased economic benefit to low-wealth families, family owners through education, legal services, and forestry technical assistance. And I'm the director of forestry. That's my part. They often make me say, as I get up, disclaimer that I am not an attorney. So you can't listen to anything I say, all right? So I'm a forester, not an attorney. But it is interesting that attorneys and foresters get together, and I think it's a great center that we have here. And again, we've heard, I thought Ms. Gibbs did an awesome job. I could have quit and not even given my talk. After listening to her, I'm like, that's what it's all about. I mean, it was a great introduction that she had. Here's what we do with our work. As I said, we started as legal services. The forestry component was added later. We talk about our work in terms of 3 buckets. Prevention, which is helping people. We have free will clinics where we help people. Education, obviously, is huge. And we also help people. If you're not familiar with heirs property and what goes through there, I'll let Ms. James tell you, because she can explain it. But anyway, also helping people through the probate process. That's what we do to prevent this heirs property situation from occurring. Resolution where it happens. The resolution involves, one, providing free legal services to folks, and we also have a mediation technique that's kind of been developed within the center. Family presentations where you get the families together and you go over and you try to work on their differences and get them to agree about how to go forward. All of this is about protecting land. And then the forestry group came later, as I said, land utilization, and that's helping landowners use their land and basically through sustainable forest management. That's the land use that we kind of put forward, and I'll kind of explain that as we go. Sorry if you can't really see this. The land utilization bucket is to help landowners use their land in a sustainable way to build generational wealth. We do that through education's huge, technical assistance, and the education with the workshops and things like that. And also we're a connector to agencies that are out there, because there's tremendous resources out there, and a lot of this boils down to trust that's been broken through the past and people not understanding that. Our 22 counties where we work, in the green, mostly coastal counties. We started, with 4 or 5 counties. We're now 22, and actually this year we're adding 3 more. So we're up to 25 counties where we have attorneys, outreach, and forestry, foresters present. Just put this in as an impact before I start into the heavy-duty forestry stuff. We've cleared over 300 titles. This is our legal services folks, with a cumulative tax assessed value of over $18 million. Over 1,400 simple wills have been drafted. As far as forestry, we've worked with over 500 families now that collectively own about 40,000 acres. Okay, forestry services. And kind of our beginning, as I said, was in about 2013. And this is a paper, obviously you can't read it. I'm just pointing out the significant loss of African-American kind of farmland, rural community land, from a peak of about 15 million acres in 1910 down to about 2 million acres at the turn of the century. So a tremendous loss of land, and that of course means the rural communities lost a lot of their economic drivers there. Something that we saw, we had a pilot study was started by this U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities in concert with the Forest Service and the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Did a pilot study. South Carolina was one of the 3 pilot sites where they did a study looking at what happens if you provide education, if you provide technical assistance, if you provide that connection that people need. Will it benefit the rural communities? And of course that was a resounding yes that it would. In the center was the South Carolina site where the pilot study was started. Some of the things that they found out were African American owned forests were not returning their potential value to the landowners. Like they said, a lot of the land was not being managed nearly like land that was being by other non-industrial private landowners. The land was being underutilized basically. So those are some of the findings they found. We always use the example of the education is huge. One of the landowners we have in another county where somebody offered her $90,000 for the timber on the family land. It was a big tract. She actually had a large tract, 250 acres. Somebody offered her $80,000 for her timber. Seems like a lot of money. When they worked through the system, they got her in touch with our former director of forestry, Sam Cook, some of you may know. Put him in touch with a private consultant. The timber was worth almost $300,000. And I mean, that's kind of a dramatic example, but it happens constantly. I mean, we have people coming to us, they don't even really know where their family land is, and we have to find their land for them. I mean, people just don't know what they have, the education and things like that. And as Ms. Gibbs emphasized, land is huge. Land is kind of power in a way. And then also, during this pilot study, we found out that out of the 40 families that we used, only 2 of them knew anything about agencies out there that had any kind of resources available to them, like the NRCS or anything like that. So there was just a lack of knowledge of that. And a lot of it boiled down to trust, too. I mean, for the reason for this dramatic land loss we've heard. Nobody knew, the families didn't know about estate planning and things like that. I mean, there was obviously not access to good legal counsel and things. I mean, there was a number of reasons why the loss. I just stuck this in here because this is something that people, I don't know if anybody's heard of Pickford versus Glickman. It's a huge case back related to discrimination with the USDA. Not to talk about it much, just to say that I guess was one of the largest civil rights, maybe the largest civil rights settlement ever. But it's something about the discrimination versus black farmers. Why forestry for us? It's kind of a natural, our soils, climate, everything is perfect for growing trees fast. It doesn't require much input from landowners. It's a $21 billion economic impact forestry does in South Carolina. It's a huge thing. Over $500 million of timber is moved, and the way South Carolina is set up, 88% of the state is in private ownership. I used to work for forest industry for almost 40 years, but there is industrial land, but most of the land in South Carolina is under private ownership, other private ownership, non-industrial ownership, and it's kind of like, we need our piece of the pie too. Why can't our landowners have that? Again, just a map showing all the wood manufacturing. Markets are huge for us. We got to have markets if we're going to be able to sell wood for our landowners. And our landowners come, we always tell our landowners, this is your land, it's your objectives. We're not telling you what to do on your land. You tell us what to do. But all of them wanted, produce some income. That's the incentive for these people, their families, to keep this land. So it's huge to have markets where they can sell their land. I know people probably get sick of those logging trucks, but that is important. So as far as land utilization, we talk about education, awareness for our landowners, and then referrals. We're a connector, really. That's what we started out as, a connecting group where we connect people to the Natural Resource Conservation Service in South Carolina. Has been huge for us, a supporter of our program, but we have many others that are too. I put technical assistance down there because, as I said, we were supposed to be a connector, getting people to private consultants, private forestry consultants, to help them to manage their land. We all want our landowners to have forest management plans, and this is not just an equity thing. This is small landowners have trouble managing land because they can't, forestry is kind of a big thing, big equipment, they don't want to come to a 15 or 20 acre piece of land. You just can't. One, as far as harvest, you can't, it's difficult, and with all the expensive equipment that's required now. And so, anyway, what we found out is we have to do a lot more in-house help, technical assistance to landowners on the ground, kind of in a way serving as consultants. And just real quick, these are kind of phases, just pictures of what we do. One, outreach, landowner engagement, obviously, is one. And I said, trust is a huge thing, is being out with the landowners, working with them. This is kind of some pictures of our outreach. Educational materials, we provide educational materials. One of this is like selling timber off heirs property is not a good idea, and you could be sued by the other heirs. I mean, just educational material like this that we provide for our landowners to help them. Educational events, we have forestry workshops where we bring in the experts. Of course, COVID messed all that up, so we had to go virtual. And thank goodness for Bible studies and things who helped our landowners learn how to use the internet. I think that and keeping up with their grandkids. But anyway, we do like in person where we go local communities and we get the local agents like the NRCS, your district conservationists, your project foresters and things, to meet the landowners so they get comfortable with them. Because, as I said, there was a lot of distrust there with state and federal agencies. Connect the partners, and again, we have wonderful partners that work with us, like the Forestry Commission, the NRCS, Clemson, South Carolina State, that really provide a lot of the technical expertise too, and financial assistance. Again, NRCS is one that we use. I don't know if people are familiar with the EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentive Program. That's the main one that we use to get our landowners' land planted back in trees. A lot of them come to us, their land is degraded. Clemson did a study showing, the difference between kind of a degraded, unmanaged forest property versus a well-managed forest property, and it's 5 to 6 times the value. And so that's what we're trying to help them, and this is the financial avenue that we've had. We have great relationships with South Carolina. We have a special funding pool for our landowners, so it's pretty assured if they get to us and we can get them in to the program that they'll get funded to get their trees, site prepared and planted. Again, technical assistance, so we try to provide and walk with the landowner whatever we need to do. Some of it is just going with landowners to the NRCS office so they feel comfortable going there as they sign, work through the paperwork and things like that, and help them through the process, whatever level it is. Obviously, we'd like to move landowners towards an independent, where they're functioning independently on their own, and feel comfortable going to these agencies to get the support and help that they need. Our measures of success, as we said, number one is getting the heirs property solved. So that's one. We want all our landowners, and so if they come to us, they've got heirs property, immediately we take them to the legal services folks and get them connected and start working on that. But there's a lot that they can do with their land, even if they have heirs property. And the programs, the farm bills and things are working towards making it more, facilitating the ability of these people to get money, funding, and move through, which, back a number of years ago, they couldn't do that. Forestry plans, we want everybody to have a management plan for their land so that they can see and they can leave it, for a legacy down the road, so that the kids that follow hopefully will get engaged. That's a problem right now. A lot of the young kids are gone and moved and not coming back. But I can tell you in the last few years, I had so many people said, we're working with them now. They're back in South Carolina, and they said, I left. I said, I'm never coming back to South Carolina. And all of a sudden, they're back to their family land, and I'm so thankful that their land's there for them. Forestry practices, obviously, helping them with whatever practices they need, and then hopefully the markets are there so that they can sell their timber. Our landowners come to us. I've had very few ask me about climate change or anything like that. They mostly want to know how they can make money off their land, and that's the number one thing right now. We're very proud of some of our landowners who have, this is Joe Hamilton from Green Pond, but he was Tree Farmer of the Year. And so we're glad when our landowners move and they get recognized, they move into where they're sitting in local landowner associations. They're doing the things that are important. Joe's worked at the national level with the American Forest Foundation. And then recently, last year we had a couple more of our landowners recognized as Tree Farmers of the Year. So that makes us, very happy, and we know we're being successful when our landowners are becoming engaged in forestry. And this is basically kind of what it's all about, building forest assets for future generations. We preach the benefits of sustainable forest management. Obviously, as foresters, we know not everybody's land is suited for forestry. Some of it, obviously we'll push agroforestry, agriculture or whatever. We like natural land uses as best we can. Just some pictures, and as I said, it's 4 times the growth for managed versus unmanaged, 4 times the growth, and 5 to 6 times the value. So that's a huge benefit to these landowners. And I would say, like last year, we had almost 900 acres. We helped people reforest 900 acres. And if you look at the difference between managed and unmanaged, that's a gain of almost $2.5 million of extra money that those families, we were working with 31 families are going to have. So that's a big economic driver. Just real quick, some of the stipulations that we have for our participants. We provide free forestry services to both heirs property owners. I know that our name is Heirs Property, but we work with any historically underserved landowner, even if they have clear title. We help them with their forestry needs. We because of the South Carolina Forestry Commission says 10 acres is the minimum size of a working forest. That's kind of the stipulation we had, but I promise you we will work with any landowner that comes to us and they have land. A lot of our landowners, they've already been petitioned, a sister has 5 acres, her sister has 5 acres next to her, and they can kind of cluster together and get that. But we want any landowner that has land to come to us. There's no income criteria for any of our landowners like there are for some of our legal services. And we just want to make sure that the landowner's objective is to keep the land in the family. We're not trying to help them, get the land back and, increase the curb appeal of their property so they can sell it easier. It's lands that really, the family wants to keep the land in the family for the future to come. Real quick, our forestry, we've broken up our counties that we get in, and you might notice that we've moved into the Midlands with our forestry component because of a cooperative grant. We have the NRCS, so we can provide forestry services up there. Don't have the attorneys and outreach folks there yet, but we're moving that way. So this is kind of how we partition up our land among forestries. We have 6.5 foresters on staff. Don't worry about that half forester. He's doing all right. And so anyway, basically unlock the potential of your land. That's our whole thing. People have land, they need education, they need some help along the way, people to walk with them, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's all I can tell you. So.
Thank you so much, Steve. Great. All right.